This is an oral history recording of Elmer E. Kohl from 1916 Osage Drive, Okemos, Michigan. Elmer's phone number is 517-349-9446. The recording was made by Jim Walkinshaw at the Oldsmobile History Center on June 7th, 1990. This is tape number 1 of 2 tapes. Elmer, if you could just start with us with your name and your address and your phone number, if you would, please.
Well, Jim, I'm Elmer Kohl. I reside at 1916 Osage Drive in Okemos, Michigan. Been out there the last 26 years. Built the place myself with the help of some Oldsmobile engineers who also were building at the same time, including John Belts. My telephone number is area code 517-349-9446 in the event anybody ever wants to get a hold of me and offer me a job again.
Very good. Now, maybe you could just go back with us to where you started and when you started at the plant.
Well, you say plant. Oldsmobile is more than plant.
That's
Oldsmobile is and was nationwide.
right.
My work started back in Pennsylvania back in 1935 when I was fledgling mechanic and looking for a better place to work. By that I mean some place to make a living. I was working then for a Studebaker dealer at 50 cents an hour as a mechanic. When I worked, you sat on the bench 4 hours a day, and you perhaps worked 3 to 4 hours a day at 50 cents an hour, and you figure out what the wage would be. And gracious, there were no benefits in those days. So I knew I had to do something better because that was starvation, particularly for a married man. I saw an ad in the paper one day for a job involving a first line of cars, General Motors cars. And this man was interviewing at a local hotel. So I arranged to contact this individual, who I found out during the interview was the service manager at an Oldsmobile dealer in that town. He was looking for mechanics because the mechanics he had, he was unhappy with. So I agreed I'd take a job with him, but I didn't realize when I took the job that it was an experiment. They were starting out the flat rate type operation, where mechanics were paid for the job they did at a flat rate price.
Mm-hmm.
The faster you worked, the more you got paid. He didn't tell me also that if I made a boo-boo, I'd have to do it over myself. Didn't get paid for it. So I accepted that job, and I discovered later on I was the only candidate for that type of thing. Everybody else wanted security. They wanted so much an hour.
Oh.
I thought this was an opportunity, so I took the job. The very first week I was there, I made more money than I ever knew existed. And come Saturday, I didn't get paid because I made too much money. So things were not very good at that point. That I was about ready to leave and go back to my old job, but they encouraged me to stay at hourly rate because they couldn't afford flat rate.
Okay.
Because a good mechanic could make too much money. I'm not saying I was a good mechanic, but it was a new thing
Sure.
for them. They didn't realize how hard the guys were really working, what they could have earned, and they were afraid that if one earned that kind of money, got paid, everybody else wanted to go on flat rate right now.
Oh yeah.
And the dealer wouldn't have enough money to support his boat and whatnot.
Yeah.
And
Break the bank.
Yeah, break the bank. So I stayed on, and 2 weeks later, one of the service reps in Philadelphia zone, Philadelphia zone, was at the dealership. And I got talking to him, and I bought this flat rate program. He told me how lucrative it was in different parts of the zone. And where could I get a job? If I said, right here, you're a flat rate. Well, I was. I said, for 1 week. I said, the dealer owed me $35, and I said, he didn't want to pay that because that was just too much money. He wasn't accustomed to paying that kind of money.
Yeah.
So I said, well, we're going to see about that. So after about 2 hours, Peter and he came walking on. He said, well, we're going to start this program all over again. He said, maybe I was too hasty in what I was doing. I agreed to an experiment. He said, we'll follow through this for 1 month. But he said, we're going to see what's going to happen 1 month. Just about that time, there was a campaign on axle shaft breakage on the 35 Oldsmobile.
Okay.
The axle shafts were breaking, and they had so many to campaign and change that we had to do it nights. And I'll tell you, every one of those meant $3 for me to change axles.
Isn't that something?
And boy, I'll tell you, I started working after 5 o'clock at night. I worked right on through about 10 every night.
Uh-huh.
And I'll tell you, that's the first week, our first, time I ever earned $100 1 week.
Uh-huh.
That time.
Were they paying you now?
Oh, yeah, they were paying me.
Okay.
They were paying me. Nobody else would follow.
Uh-huh.
And they were still cautious of what was going to happen. But
Now, were things kind of shaky still then, Elmer, from the depression still?
yes, it was. Oh God, yes. Saturday afternoon, we'd have to go out and ring doorbells and try to collect bills,
Oh,
service repair bills, so we get paid.
okay.
Because if either owe you money, said, well, how to get you money, you're going to have to go out this afternoon, and here's a stack of invoices,
Oh, my.
and you have to use your own car, your own feet, whatnot, ring bells.
And if you didn't collect enough, you
If you
didn't get,
didn't collect enough, you didn't
Nobody-
get it. Next thing you know, of course, the dealer is broke.
yeah.
So a new dealer came in, took it over, and they needed a service manager. And next thing you know, the guy that hired me, he was caught filling a telephone book with money at the cashier's desk. At night time, he shake the book out, drop $10 bills, so forth. And they finally caught on to him. They fired him. So kind of next morning, I was service manager. I didn't know from nothing about being service manager, but I'm a service manager, just like that.
You'd been there how long?
I was there, see, this dealership changed hands. I was there about, 6 months.
And you're now the
And
service
now
man?
I'm the service manager.
Wow.
And the service manager is going to get paid now at $35 a week and 1% commission on customer labor sales.
Okay.
But the 1% had to be used to buy a car.
Oh,
So
okay.
that wasn't too bad because I needed a better car than what I had.
Yeah.
And so that thing got going pretty well. And I was able to buy a new Oldsmobile as a result of that 1%.
Uh-huh.
Because cars wasn't quite expensive in those days,
Yeah.
but it was all relative. But I got to know the service personnel from Philadelphia pretty well. And so manager was in there one day while I was selling a caster and camber front end alignment job to a customer. And the zone manager was standing there listening to me selling this.
Yeah.
And it was all done. He said, he said, I like the way you approached that guy. He said, do you ever think of coming to work with the factory? I said, yes, but I said, that's way out beyond me. I said, I'm just a fledgling service manager. He said, just you mind your P's and Q's, do a good job. He said, one of these days we're going to have a need for a service representative. He said, you take you study, see what you think that you can do in a job like that. See if you want to leave town and travel and whatnot. Of course, I was really flowing. And man, I was in cloud nine. Man, I really went to work. God, I'll tell you, I sold customer labor sales and that doggone place. We didn't have room to do it, so we put on a night shift.
Uh-huh.
And then that dealership got rocky
Okay.
because found out that this dealer sold automobiles on time, but he didn't even own the automobiles he was selling. So when you bought an automobile, you found out you didn't even own it, let alone you paid for it.
Oh, my gracious.
So Oldsmobile had to buy back, hundreds of mortgages, tires, plus the automobiles, get these customers resatisfied. This guy went to jail and sold his top echelon. And I was a service manager, man, like I was about the end of the line that didn't go to jail. So that was an experiment. But anyway, experience, as you say. But anyway, so a manager came back to me again about that time. He said, this place is folded. He said, fill out this application. He said, we'll see what we can do about getting you I was a service rep. But he said, you may not be able to do it at this minute because it wouldn't look right if we come in here and plunk you out of here and put you right in the factory. I want you to accept another job, another city in Pennsylvania. So it don't look like we hired you right from here. And he said, I'm going to work with a dealer in this particular place. You'll realize that when the time comes, you have been spoken for who isn't a service rep. So I went to this dealership, talked to him. Yeah, he knew all about that thing. I said, well, I'll start next Friday. And so I get back home. But the time I got back home, the telephone call, I said, don't bother. He said, we need a person right away. He says, come on down and tell you tomorrow morning. I want to talk to him.
Oh my goodness.
You talk about fortune and luck.
Yeah.
Luck shines on some people, and there is a big degree of luck in promotions and whatnot. Talent, ability is a big plus, but you have to have luck. Timing has to be just right. Anyway, I got the job. My first job in Old was to liquidate this dealership I was with.
The one that you were working with. Oh my.
All the parts, everything had to be put into a warehouse on inventory. I worked there for a month just trying to get some organization going in a warehouse in the middle of the winter. No heat in it.
Oh my.
What did I get into? Because I discovered my salary was not $250 a month to start.
Yeah.
But that was still a lot better than $35 a week.
Oh yeah.
But with some future with it. So from that point on,
When was that?
that was back in 1940.
40.
And then 41, I started with Olds in Philadelphia. So
Mm-hmm.
I headquartered right out of the area I was to the whole regions of Pennsylvania,
Okay.
and whatnot.
And what were you called?
And service rep.
You were a
Service representative.
Okay.
My whole job was to go into dealerships and review their mechanical problems with them, help them with their mechanical problems there. When they were stumped and didn't know how to do this and fix that, or had a customer complaint they couldn't handle, I had to go.
Okay.
And of course, back in those days, everybody did everybody's work. By that, I mean the service rep also did the sales representative's work in the dealership. You had to sell seat covers, you had to sell advertising, anything you could think of that they had to do that was in the area. I was supposed to do when I was in that area, including holding club meetings at nighttime. And we were doing this, I say, for $250 a month, 6 and 7 days a week, and just about 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
I get home, the kids didn't even know who I was. They go home. But then, of course, Japan got mixed up out in Pearl Harbor, and then we were transferred out to Lansing and the gun school program.
Can I back you up a little bit?
Yeah.
Excuse the interruption. When we came out with that semi-automatic transmission and then the hydromatic,
Right.
do you remember anything about those?
Oh, yes. I was in I was a dealer service manager in
Yeah,
1937.
How did they go? Were they okay? Did they work all right?
Oh, yeah. Because we had nothing any better. We didn't know. And the biggest problem with those things, of course, was the inability to know what to do to fix them. And they didn't work because even the factory people didn't know what to do.
Oh, is that right? Uh-huh.
And a guy would have a problem with his, it was a semi-automatic transmission. The car had to sit. You couldn't even touch it until somebody from Philadelphia or from Lansing came in to give you a lift, take it out,
Okay.
apart, see what failed, and get it back together
Uh-huh.
again. But it wasn't too long. We found out, hey, this thing isn't as complicated as what it's all made out to be. There's a lot of fear and the unknown of the fear of the unknown in this damn thing. Before you know it, well, it became duck soup to take care of.
Was it a fairly reliable
Yes,
unit?
it was a good transmission. It was not bad. It was semi. It had a clutch and what had
Yeah.
for the day of the fluid
Yeah.
coupling. And it was a good forerunner of what was to come as we know today.
Yeah.
It went on right on through 1940, and of course by that time the war hit, and it was all done.
Yeah.
Production was done. Then I come out here and went into the 20mm gun training program with Joe
Okay.
Dobbs, and
Where was that?
that was we're in the auditorium.
Oh, in the auditorium.
We built classrooms in the auditorium, and
Okay.
we had just 7 or a class each week, and these were every member of the armed forces, Navy, Army, and Marines, anybody who handled any kind of weaponry, 50mm, 50 caliber, 20mm, 37, 75.
All right.
We taught them all, including setups on the airplanes.
Okay.
So
What kinds of things would you have been teaching them, Elmer?
we took the entire weapon, started a class on a Monday morning. The class were housed out at MSU at dormitories.
Okay.
And they would on foot walk from there down Olds.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
All the way
Oh,
from
yeah.
East
Oh,
Lansing?
had to get exercise
Uh-huh.
somehow.
Yeah.
So by the time they got in, they were tired and hungry.
Yeah.
And we often did say, though, that the commanding officer and whatnot picked their people, and any ones that were incorrigible, didn't know what to do with, sent them off there to the gun school.
Oh, no.
We got some buttes.
Did
Oh,
you?
God,
Uh-huh.
particularly some of the Tennessee boys.
Uh-huh.
From the fields and whatnot, didn't know how shoes were all about. We had to teach them how to take that gun apart, put it back together again. They had to understand the function of it. They had to be able to get up there and explain how the gun works, complete cycle from
Okay.
start to finish. They had to, at the end of the week, had to put a blindfold, take it apart, put the whole thing back together again. And if they didn't do it, they had to stay for another week.
Oh, yeah.
So we did everything we could to get most some folks out of that week, even though we had to kill, but get that gun back together.
And the purpose of all that was, what did these guys do in the field when they went back to the service? Were they?
Unfortunately, what we understood later on, most of us forgotten. They came, they learned, they left. Then
Oh, I
we did
see.
something entirely different.
They weren't to go to the field to
That
fix
was,
guns
that was
in the
the
field?
theory of it.
That
That
was
was
the
the theory, but most of them found out that it never worked that way.
Mhm.
So it was just something that some place they had to send a board of guys every week, and that was all it was taught. It just kept on coming and
Yeah.
going. It was the most monotonous work job I ever had. But anyway, well, the thing was starting to wind down. It was about 2 years that way.
Okay.
They decided that they were going to, the armament, the U.S. Army was going to put on a armament show in Wanamaker, Philadelphia. They wanted to show the public exactly what kind of education the armed people, the armed forces were getting at the various manufacturers,
Okay.
suppliers of this equipment.
Yeah.
So we set up a show down there in Philadelphia. And one of the highlights of the show is that one of the men that went with me and myself, about every 2 hours, we had to get up there and on a stage platform, have a 20 millimeter gun. One time I put the blindfold on and I talked through this whole gun, take it apart, put it back together again, make a show of it.
Uh-huh.
Everybody applauded, left. Next 2 hours, the other guy got up there and that's what he did day in, day out, day in. I so sick and tired taking that gun apart on a blindfold. I had some pictures of that doggone thing. I looked for them last night.
That's a
I
shame.
can't
We'd
find
like to have that.
I
All
can't
right.
I can't find them where I think we had kids got them. Anyway, one Saturday night, we knew this thing was winding down. Also, the war was coming to an end.
Okay.
Question is, where do I go? What am I going to do? Because the gun school was done. We were living in rent out here in Lansing, Otto Street. The park was torn down now. One Saturday night, I was working the blindfold test. And I don't know why I looked, but there was a guy out there with a sailor, like straw hat on, type that they used to wear in those days. He looked sort of like a pretty big farmer. He paid particular attention to when I was doing there. It's all over. He was a guy that lingered. He walked up. He was talking to me. And he had a different accent, sort of a Midwestern accent, like Kansas, Missouri, and something like that. So you worked out here at Olds before, didn't you? Here in Philadelphia? Yeah, I told him. Well, my name is Applied Sports. He says, I'm going to be the new service manager here in Philadelphia. I'm being transferred here. Said, I want you to come to work for me again as a service rep. Well, that was good news to me because that was my hometown and whatnot. Gee, moved back, that made my wife happy. Well, boy, that was really something. So I went to work for Clyde for quite some time. Then he became a zone manager, and I took his job as service manager. I happened to be the youngest zone service manager in the nation. I was 29 years old. So
when would that have been about?
that would be 1944.
44. Okay.
44, 45 and around there somewhere.
We weren't selling cars yet, or were we?
Yes, we
Okay.
started to sell,
All right,
started to
so-
sell cars for the first time,
All right.
and painted bumpers and all. And that was before our time too. My God, the bumpers in those cars, those days looked like the bumpers we have today, which is all paint, no chrome.
Okay,
But people did not want to buy them before their time. They wanted chrome bumpers.
Okay.
But,
is that because of the war we were
yeah,
painting them?
right, get chrome, what
Uh-huh.
have you. So they had to do something, and
All
we
right.
improvised here, improvised there. And one of our biggest jobs was keeping people happy with quality that wasn't the best of things, because gee, the plants were being reconverted from war
Yeah,
production to cars.
yeah,
People being retrained, getting them out the dealers. Cars had to get out there somehow, some way, and some of them were not very good.
uh-huh,
And the reputation that those days were getting was not very good either, but there was no competition because there was no such thing as Japanese competition,
Yeah.
or what have you.
yeah,
So we did just about unload anything those days, and it took quite a doing, and it was very, very exasperating at times to see some of the stuff that you had to sell as a quality product.
Okay.
It was sad, but each year it improved, become more efficient, and so forth.
well, we had a great big strike in there someplace right after the war too.
Yes, a very big, a long strike.
Yeah, it's long.
Long strike. And in one way, it wasn't that bad as far as the theater and the people were concerned, because we needed something to stabilize the business. It was too helter-skelter the way it was.
Okay,
The people were used to good money during the war, and all of a sudden they got so little going to work
oh,
that
yeah,
it was the unions, of course, were flexing their muscles at
Yeah.
that time, which they couldn't do during all these war years.
Uh-huh.
Of course, we got into that Detroit situation where they just about tore the town apart, all with this gang. And we were all apprehensive about losing our jobs, but fortunately, by that time, I was his own service manager, and they had to have somebody run the place, so I was able to stay on.
okay,
But and during those times, of course, we couldn't use cars because fuel was still rationed,
Mhm.
and we were traveling or making our circuits by train and by bus, lugging our stuff with us and what have you. It was awfully hard way of working, but we were young then.
Yeah.
We didn't mind that.
Yeah.
It was just part of making a living. So we had a regional manager out of Detroit, or out of New York, Quinn Murphy was his name. Old Quinn Murphy never even drove on it, didn't know how to drive a car. So what I discovered when I was service manager in Philadelphia, that one of my duties was bagman.
oh, I see.
Every time we got news that Quinn Murphy was coming to Philadelphia, I and the zone manager had to be down to meet this guy, push him off the train. And about as close as I came to him was touching his hand when he gave me his suitcases.
Uh-huh.
Off we went to the hotel. Once we got embedded down in the hotel, of course, I had to get back to work. So just about that time, he was making a survey of all the dealerships around the area, and he wanted pictures of the dealership because some of them were pretty poor.
Yeah.
So he wanted pictures. So, my job to get pictures of the service setups, and I was taking pictures of the dealers I knew had the best service setups, because I was steering away from some of the
Oh, yeah.
bad ones.
Uh-huh.
So this one time, old Quinn gets in there and he wants to look at some of these pictures, sort through the thing very fast. Like, you don't have any real bad ones, do you? Oh, yes, sir, we sure do. He says, he says, you're just like all the dumb Dutchmen in this area here. He said, you're trying to pull a fast one on a guy that knows what the hell is going on. He says, I want to see some pictures of real service setups that I know damn well you and the rest of you guys aren't happy with. I didn't have any.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, goodbye, it's not me.
Uh-huh.
So that was my assignment the next couple of months, is go out and get some real
Find the bad one.
evidence. But these had to be in areas where we knew we were not getting a center price class. We knew that something drastic had to be done because we were starting to move. Bulls was starting to come alive, getting big, and the dealers had to be part of it. So, excuse me. So I never heard no more about that picture deal. We sent him over to Detroit, died somehow. But anyway, something good must have happened. I don't know what it was, but I got wind of the fact that I was going to become assistant service manager in Lansing, and worked for a guy by the name of Harry Eckblade.
Okay.
I knew Harry
Yeah.
even when I was service manager because he was service manager at one point in oh, that's in Boston, and he knew we from Philadelphia. Then he became assistant, then immediately became service manager.
Mhm.
So he wanted me as his assistant. So I went out. That was just about the time we were introducing the rocket engine. We had the plastic hoods and all these lights under the
yes,
hood, you
okay.
know, and I was beating my fanny off around town trying to keep the bolt in place because you get out on the highway and go 60 miles an hour, the hoods would leave.
Oh, no.
Wind up in a field somewhere because they were improperly tied down.
Yeah.
They were designed to look free in the shoulder, but
Yeah.
not drive around the country with them.
Yeah.
So I was leave everything alone, on, I got to Lansing, just about the time I had my tickets and whatnot, a telephone call. Tell Cole Hunt to come out to Lansing. Probably would take 3 weeks vacation. We were never paid for overtime during the war period.
Oh.
And all this accumulated overtime had to be taken now. That was the edict.
Really?
Now.
Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting?
So I turned.
What they do, everybody then?
Everybody involved in the war program.
Wow.
It was not paid for overtime, had to take vacation in lieu of overtime dollars.
Was that the way it was generally during the war? You didn't get paid, the salary folks did not get paid for the
No,
overtime?
That's correct. That's correct. So all of a sudden I had 3 weeks vacation to think about what am I going to do when I get to Lansing? At the end of the 3 weeks, I got out here and so they wanted me assistant service manager at Harry Eckblade. And spent a lot of time there on at the GMI, going to school, getting different programs in there, learning this, learning that, whatnot. But Harry was having a difficult time of it. It just wasn't his nature to handle that kind of stress, kind of work under Skinner.
Yeah.
So when Harry wasn't on the job, of course I had to act as service manager, and a couple of times I had to go as staff meeting in representing him without any notice whatsoever that he didn't show up that morning. We had a presentation to make. So I guess Skinner got like it to me somewhere. Next thing you know, I was service manager.
Harry was out?
Harry got a deal, yeah. They
Uh-huh.
put him into a dealership in Connecticut.
Uh-huh.
So I became the younger service manager in the country. And of course, Joe Dobbs, he had moved into assistant to the general sales manager.
Okay.
So that was administrative assistant, a new post
All right.
for him. So that came in there at a very interesting time. And I brought in Bill Buxton as the assistant service manager. I didn't
Okay.
know him, but Joe Dobbs doing well. He became highly recommended, and he was a very good assistant.
Mhm.
Bill was a go-getter. He liked new things. He liked
Okay.
things not like we used to do, but let's do it a better way.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have liked that better. So we developed a lot of programs. We developed the first training program, mechanic training programs in Oldsmobile, where we actually had a mechanical training program, and the mechanics actually made out to fill out examinations and whatnot, sent them in, and they got rewards, and we had they got certificates for that with their number and whatnot, recognized nationally. They brought it in a dealership, they hung it up on the wall.
Oh,
He is a
Uh-huh.
qualified Oldsmobile trained mechanic, and here's the date and so forth.
Prior to that, we had not done that sort of thing?
Prior to that, we had nothing.
It was the
like that.
dealer's responsibility, basically?
Somehow, we just pat him off the street and
Yeah.
give him a book. Here you are. But we took it a few steps further. So
Did they try to bring everybody in,
we had
or was it?
we first started out with a mail program, just like I got a sort of a correspondence course is where we started first,
Oh, all right.
and we took one section of a service manual, and that was for January. That went out first,
All right.
and they studied that. Then when that went out, then we sent the questionnaires out.
Mhm.
And then they had to fill in the questionnaire. Sure, they could copy from the manual. We knew that, but at least we knew they read it.
Yeah.
We knew they had an understanding of it, or they couldn't have answered it.
Yeah.
Then they come into us, and we added that, and then we give them a mark. Then in February, we took another section of the manual, went across the whole board,
Mhm.
until we went through the whole full service manual. By that time,
Where did you bring them into the plant at that time?
the material?
No, did you bring these guys into
No,
the
no,
plant
no,
at all?
no. We
you
did
didn't
that
bring
right
them into
on
the-
location.
I did it all.
On location. We knew that this was just our beginning. We knew there had to be a hands-on type of training program because this was not complete. It was words.
Yeah.
Words are great,
Yeah.
but seeing something is worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
And the germ of a national service training center,
Mhm.
GM Service
Mhm.
Training Center, was beginning to gel.
Okay.
We general service managers would get together at different conferences and we would convince this thing that this thing had to be changed. And finally, we got the attention of Merle St. Aubin, the then director of Service General Motors Corporation. We got his attention and we got his help and assistance in this thing. And finally, through Curtis and whatnot, he got the funds to start the first one.
Okay.
And we got started the first one in Denver. And set that thing up. And
this is corporation.
Corporation. Every car division was represented, and every car division was paid their share
Sure.
of the center. And we hired training trainers, mechanic trainers,
Mhm.
and they headquartered right at the training
Oh,
center.
yeah. Okay.
And they came to work every morning right in their training classroom. And the leaders then would begin to send their men in to worry about new carburetors, new devices, new transmissions, new axles, whatever the need be. We set up training programs, and our program nationally for Oldsmobile was headed up by Ray Bodine. He was the national training center. He was a natural for that. He loved to train people. He loved tools. He loved charts. He loved to get people and lay out and tell them exactly step by step how to take something apart, put it back together again. So it was a natural for that, and it worked out just well. And eventually, every zone in the country finally got a training center, and including one here in Detroit. And that was, in fact, Detroit was the last one that we developed because the Detroit people could come into the factories here
Mhm.
in this
Because it was
area
so
for that
close.
training. Yeah, it was close, but it wasn't good enough. And by that time, the sales department thought, hey, these are good ideas. We're going to expand these things and put conference rooms in here for salespeople.
Oh,
Then the accounting people got one of this thing. Hey, there's a good idea. Now we're going to expand this thing about and bring your accountants in here for the training program.
okay.
Before you know it, it became a GM training center for car dealers,
Okay.
not a mechanic,
Yeah.
a car dealer. And after everybody came in, and it was just an action that's going today.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
felt very proud of the fact that I was in on the ground floor, became part of developing that program.
Did GMI mesh into that in any
No,
manner?
None whatsoever.
Whatsoever.
No. No, GMI was entirely different level.
All right.
It was,
Mhm.
that was management end of it to the point.
I was thinking of the old dealer program that was over there.
Yeah, about the only thing that moved from there into the training centers was the sales end of it.
Okay.
That was handled and developed, as I understand, by the school up in
Northwood,
uh,
not Northwood Institute.
no, yeah, that's one of them. That's one of them. But an automotive school up here in the,
Oh,
oh God, they have such a good
yeah,
hockey team.
yeah.
God, I
Yeah,
can't think of the name of that. But
You're not thinking of Hope.
What?
Michigan.
no, no. Anyway, it's a material.
Lake Superior State College.
It's a material
Yeah, right.
right now. But
Okay.
those things paid off well, and but the thing that continually irked all our service directors was quality, lack of quality.
Okay.
We just did not have a product that any of us could stand up and defend with all our vigor, because we knew in our own mind that we were putting stuff out that was not right. And particularly new models. It was chaos. By the time we got them debugged, it was time for another new model, and it was chaos all over. You remember those things? Oh God, I'll tell you, cars were not ready to go. I can remember a 19 oh, that was about a 53 or 54 model holes coming out. Moldings. We had moldings all over that automobile. And those moldings were so poor that they wouldn't fit anything. And one Saturday we were trying to rework moldings, just to try to decide how are we going to start build cars Monday morning with Jack Wolf sitting up there on the floor of the customer driveway with tin snips up and cut corners off and whatnot to see if we can't get an idea. How are we going to use this junk that we have no plans to get started Monday morning? It was hard. That was terrible. So it wasn't long before that. It was about that time, I should say, that Jack Wolf realized then too that something different had to be done. Back in those days, we had what was known as a chief inspector. That was Bob Cook. And the chief inspector, you think it was chief of, when you say chief inspector, you think of detectives or something like that, Scotland Yard. But that was his title, chief inspector. His job was to make sure that no bad cars are parts out of the plant. Well, now that's a pretty tall order, because there was more ways than you can shake a stick at to get cars around the chief inspector. It's true. So Wolfram called me up in his office one day, and he said, "You're going to become a chief inspector here." I said, "Gee, thanks, Mr. Wolfram, but what in the hell do I know about manufacturing?" I says, "I'm a service guy. You better learn damn fast. They want to send you down to what's his name? Was the head of manufacturing those Downey. What's his first name?
Tom Downey.
Tom Downey. Tom, not thinking of Downey. Tom Downey. I'm going to send you to his office right now." He says he wants to talk to you. He says, "I think you ought to start Monday morning."
My Lord.
This was about Wednesday.
Yeah.
So I said, "Well, I'll be down to see Mr. Wolfram." Okay. Is the quality out of that plant, he says, is no good. He said, "I like the way you've been conducting yourself in these staff meetings. You always seem to have an idea of the theory of whatnot, how something should be done." He says, you're not utilizing the full talents in that job you are as a service guy. You're an after the fact guy." He says, "You got to be up front there. You have to be a fact guy." And I said, "You don't see Downey. I get down there." "Yeah, what can I do for you?" And so just up to see Mr. Wolf, he tells me I'm going to be chief inspector Monday morning. He said, "You're going to be what?" "Chief inspector Monday morning." "What do you know about being an inspector?" I said, Nothing. "You haven't got the plant, have you?" "Oh, I have not." "You're going to have one to learn." I said, "I know that, sir." But I said, "I'm young." I said, "I think I know what is back of his mind." I said, I'll do it. Well, he knew all about it. He knew it was happening because Bob already been made superintendent of the engine plant.
Okay.
And of course, Tom Downey, that was his place, so he knew all of it. So he was just being mean and nasty, which he could really be at times. So I got over that. I got started. I found out how little I knew about how things were going in a manufacturing plant, and how little I knew all the tricks that the manufacturing people had to pass anything out to the customers they wanted to do. And it took a long time until we got our handle on the thing, because then inspection those days was just what it was. Inspect, look at a part, lay it down, look at a part, lay it down, look at a car, lay it down. Nothing sophisticated, nothing, no.
You had a lot of gauges.
We had a lot of hand gauges and whatnot, but nothing, no electronic, because none of that stuff was really invented yet. It had to be developed. And through the years in that work, we developed many different systems with the help of Sherm Lawson, who was he was just an expert in that kind of stuff. He was inventing different kind of gauges to do things automatically. It was something that he just thrived on. Fortunately, he didn't live long enough to go further and see some of the things that finally came to electronics as a result of his theories and his ideas, which helped us immeasurably.
Mm-hmm.
But the harder we worked to try to control quality as we thought, by saying we, I mean collectively, the inspection department, that we knew there had to be more. So when Belts got no, it was still Skinner involved in this thing. When Skinner was the first guy that went back to him before before Wolfram. Skinner was the guy who got the idea of a reliability program, all encompassing everything, where a reliability person would have the responsibility of reliability in every function of the plant, of the offices, of accounting, of sales. But there was no such person, there was no such program.
Okay.
And he at that time envisioned that this would be a corporate function under a vice president corporation, because everything was hodgepodge. Time was coming when everything was getting too complicated. Every gym was getting too big. Couldn't keep their arms around it. Chevrolet had outgrown General Motors at that time. It was very difficult. So that didn't go very far, except a lot of talking about it. His day, then Wolfram, of course, came in as general manager, and Skinner moved to Detroit, and he still was pursuing this reliability idea. So Wolfram picked the thing up, and he put Tom Darnton in charge to develop a reliability program in Oldsmobile under Armitage Kohl. So that dropped the chief inspector title and went into quality assurance. And Chuck got the job as director of reliability. And Chuck and I had no more of a conceivable concept of where to start, what to do, man, who. But gradually we got our hands on this, that, after this and that, because some division of the corporation took it and ran, others did nothing with the thing. But as time went on, it became obvious that in our position now as directors, we then could meet the manufacturing people at their level. It then became Bob Rawlis. And there was no more such thing as, well, go to see somebody in the plant about your product. No, we had to see it at the general manager and the director's level. So there'd be telephone calls to plants from that point on. No, we're not going to ship this. No, we're not going to use that. No, we're not going to. And we started to improve our quality image tremendously and cut our warranty costs, not dollar cost, but the amount per car down, because that time the dollar value started to change. And the number of cars was so tremendous that the total dollar spent for warranty was absolutely alarming. But you had to multiply or divide the thing out by the number of units that you were producing. So, but it was still the dollar side that they were concerned about. So that gave us a new assignment to cut costs per car to what we were accustomed to spending, which never happened because inflation took hold and the business kept on going outside. That's right. So staying then with that quality program, not only here in town, but through all the plants around the country, the assembly plants and whatnot, got to be a chore for a complete organization, a assembly plant inspectors group that we had then located out throughout the entire country. Every plant had an Oldsmobile man stationed, or I should say headquartered in that plant city. And they were responsible just as to make sure that our interests were being served at that plant. Their job was to make sure that when you fellows released a specification or what have you, that it was put into effect and was being done. They were really a policeman out there. They were not an inspector, they were a policeman. And they didn't like the looks of the products being shipped. And of course, the general managers would go out there and we'd take a look at what they're talking about. And many, many times we said, well, we're not going to ship anymore. But it didn't work because they didn't ship Olds. They shipped without their ability, and we took the short of the stick. See?
Oh,
So
yeah.
we
Okay.
couldn't win
We weren't getting the support then from
No,
the upper
no.
echelon.
because they wanted volume.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, you can't ship Olds. Geez, add some more Pontiacs.
Yes.
And off they went because
Okay.
nobody in Pontiac was complaining. It took competition to change it.
It was still kind of ship everything you got.
It
Just
took
go at
competition
it.
from abroad that get their attention. And unfortunately, it took another number of years to get their attention.
Yeah.
Then, of course, as you remember, we finally started getting into the whole new concept of doing things, metric measurements, metric drawings, and all that kind of computer started into the picture. By that time, I was starting to get tired. I was starting at the point, hey, I'm not going to start all over again, learning about metric systems, learning all about computers and whatnot. You know, I've had it. So it was about that time I decided that I'm going to retire. I had 45 years at that time in the automobile business.
Mhm.
And I had, what was it, the 63 years in Oldsmobile.
Mhm. Mhm.
Figured that was time enough, and there was young people coming along. I knew damn well were smarter than I am, and so let them run the place. So
When did you retire? What was the?
that was 16 years ago, 1970 or 74.
1974.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I enjoyed it. I loved it. Everybody said Cole is not going to make a year out of Oldsmobile. He ain't gonna make it. He's gonna die because he just absolutely. It's just that was 100% Oldsmobile.
Sure.
In fact, I felt I quite often ashamed of myself and my own family because God, I should have spent more time with them, and whatnot. But it was complete time consuming to the point where weekends it was briefcase to the farm, briefcase to that.
Sure.
And you know what it's all
Sure.
about. But enjoyed every minute of it. And,
Elmer, if you went back to the point where we had the chief inspector, about how many people would have been in the plant that you would have had with you at that time?
we had about 1,250 somewhere in around
Okay.
very close to 2,000 people, inspectors throughout.
And they were
And we
spread
finally-
through the whole plant.
Right. We finally left that we had that down because we had automated a lot of the operations. We had it down to about, I'd say 1,100
Okay.
because of most of the stuff that became automated. We brought in equipment instead of putting a bolt through a checker one at a time. We put a conveyor running through 1,000 minutes, an hour, something like that. And instead of inspecting every unit for something, we'd quality control it because we knew that the quality was starting to get good enough that we could pull so many per hour and check that one instead of checking every one. Just as when we used to check every engine, for example, hot test. You find
Sure.
out today
Sure.
they don't do it anymore because it's redundant. And there's too few failures of a hot test,
Mhm.
and let the car give a hot test. So even today, they don't have such a thing as
Yeah.
inspection departments. I understand. We used to call that letting the boxes watch a chicken coop, but good or bad, I don't know. But the product today is so good that I'd have to believe that what is the right thing.
Yeah.
Because George Clemison just took a delivery of a 98, and he can't get done bragging about the performance of this automobile. He says there's been subtle changes made in this car
Yeah.
since I got my last one a year ago.
Uh-huh.
To the point, he says, I can't believe this is such a beautiful, wonderful, quiet running automobile.
Interesting.
He said, only more people would take the time to drive an American-built car.
Mhm.
They wouldn't be buying a foreign-built car.
Yeah.
I said, George says, that's sales department's job.
You bet.
Make sure that they
Yeah.
get the people into those cars. He says, yes, but it's been an all-consuming, impossible task. That's about all I.
Elmer, how, in the statistics and all of that stuff must have been part of the inspector's repertoire, even way back when you first started in that game, weren't there?
The statistical quality control. We
Yeah.
even had a national statistical quality control group, and we had a Lansing chapter.
Okay.
And
This would have been long before
Oh, yes.
the reliability
Oh,
department
yes.
came to pass.
that's right, because we could not possibly have had enough inspection to check all material coming in the back door, piece by piece, to determine whether it's good or bad.
Sure.
We had to do that statistically and do it properly. So there had to be courses for that.
Did that
Did that.
change over time? Did we lose that and
No,
bring it back, or we
expanded it?
All
Oh,
right.
yes, it became modernized to the point where it included sophisticated gauging along with statistics.
Okay.
And the computers, of course, played an awfully big part in it. And that, of course, is after my time.
Did the guys out in manufacturing do much of that statistical stuff back in the
Then
early
not,
days?
absolutely, they wouldn't even think about it.
They
They wouldn't think of taking a bad part and throwing in a bad part bin. All their interest was in the gun, in the gun, in the gun. And our guys, they're quick try to, oh, that was going on. But that changed too.
Yeah.
Eventually, we sold manufacturing on the idea of putting gauges, checking equipment right on the operation. And look at what it would eliminate. We used dollars to sell that kind of program. And of course, we had to fight the unions for that because they didn't want to see that happen.
Mhm.
And eventually, they saw the light through, and that quality by cutting the cost of scrapping defective material, scrapping and inspecting it. Yeah.
Did over that time, how did the management of the organization change? Can you describe that at all?
Not as much as we would like to see change. By that, I simply mean this: how often have you met somebody that you knew worked here in a pretty high level of management and say to yourself, what did they ever see in that guy? How did they ever put up with him? Back in those days, you got promoted by what your boss thought of you as a person, not too much by what management thought your ability to management contribution would be. So we got people into positions that you couldn't let go. You got people that, with the old guard, all that, was so accustomed to playing that trick of getting out the back door and you missed it, that you couldn't get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't transfer them because they were, if you transfer them from the boss at this point, the other boss at the new point wouldn't take you. So right back to the old boss again. You couldn't get a change. So it wasn't until those guys started to retire that you could put some of these newer, younger people with some ambition, desire, and ability into these jobs that things began to change. Then they had to fight their boss because he wasn't accustomed to the kind of new theory. These were whiz kids. Oh, I get them out of here. I don't want to see those guys. He's going to have a line guy here. Boy, Joe, Pete over here, he's been with me there for 25 years. He can handle that job. Make a foreman out of it. And they would. And it wasn't until they started to reevaluate that and get people into the computer system and start pulling some cards, like who is the best qualified for these jobs, that we got some better people in some of these jobs. No, it's a big people problem.
When do you have a kind of a feel and time when that kind of started to flop over?
Yeah, this thing started to flop over, I would say, just about in the late 60s, going into the early 70s. Late 60s, it began to flop over.
So it took a 20-year period from the war.
That's exactly right. Don't you remember we would have to go to personnel and go through an evaluation, employee evaluation program? That's about when this thing was beginning to show its blossoms. And it wasn't worth a damn at that time because they had a lot of work to do to make something right out of it, because they were trying to say, what's this guy going to fit in a round hole or in a square hole? What's it going to fit into? And some of those things develop or didn't even show up at that time on your evaluation, area evaluation sheet, but eventually it did. And it wasn't until, I'd say well after the Belts days that we began to be serious about who we were going to promote on certain jobs. And that we were no longer going to be worried about hurting the guy's feeling if he didn't get be a general foreman when he was a foreman for so long. And it wasn't until then that we started to get some support by the manufacturing groups, because guys like you know them all. I'm not naming them, but you know them all. I'll tell you, they attend these Tuesday, Wednesday meetings with Rollis, production meetings, and we used to call what was that meeting called?
The operating meeting.
Operating meeting.
Right.
God, you know what they were. Holy Toledo. You know when they were kidding you. You know when they were lying to you.
Right.
But it was all a ta-ha-tee sort of a situation. Yeah. Are we going to have to work Saturday? No, we'll get that. Boy, they did too.
Yeah.
But Wallace passed away, of course.
Yeah.
Bob Moody came in there, and he wasn't there long enough to do any good, speak up, but he was part of the change.
Yeah.
Change, because he was of the new school.
If Skinner back in his days had perceived the need for that, but he couldn't make it happen apparently.
He could not get his program across to others, regardless of how hard he tried about it. The corporation was too large, too big.
Yeah.
He was just one man in the wilderness. He made it tough on people that wouldn't listen, particularly if they were under his supervision.
Yeah.
But the whole industry, the whole nation's industries had to get this new philosophy.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, after the war, the people who developed the philosophy and were the best at it went to Japan, and that's where they sold it.
Yeah.
And that's where they got the biggest start.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Japan had such a head start
Sure.
on America, because nobody in upper management would believe what we're trying to tell them.
Mm-hmm.
That our products were poor. They were not. They could not compete worldwide if somebody else was any better. It came to pass.
Yeah.
I got so tired of fighting that by 1974, I was ready to quit.
Yeah.
You finally get to the point where you get
sure.
straightened out.
Bat your head against the
That's
wall.
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tell me about Skinner.
Skinner.
Yeah, what kind of a guy was
tough.
he?
He was tough. Maybe some say he was very unfair. But Skinner was the type of individual that knew the business. He knew what had to be done, and he knew by step what he wanted, what had to be done. He couldn't be kidded. And if he ever found anybody trying to sell him on something that he knew was a bunch of BS, you were fired right now. He was hard, very hard. But if he had any confidence at all in you, and he could see that you were the guy that he had to have to get his way, man, you were on the way. But he was awfully hard on these old has-beens.
The old all over the woods.
Awfully hard on
them.
Because back managers of different plants here, like the forge plant, whatnot, he was hard on them.
Mm-hmm.
Because he knew they were just so much wind, and he got rid of them.
Okay.
To the point where, of course, they moved him down to Detroit that time to start cleaning some houses down there. He was a type individual that if they had to move people, he could move them.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a man that knew what he was doing. He was a man that knew the business and had a lot of respect. He gained a lot of respect from people that worked for him, but also a lot of fear. He ruled by fear.
Did he? Was he a plant person? Did he end
Yes,
up out
oh my God, yes. He would tour the plant by himself on a Sunday afternoon.
Oh my.
And Monday morning, he'd have Donnie and he'd have a smoke up there in his office. Oh, hell was breaking loose. Because he found this, he found that. He told me we were going to do this. I saw the same thing over there. Find that man and get him out of there. I don't care what you get him out of there. There was no argument.
Yeah.
I saw Bill Schultz go into some of those meetings. I'm telling you, Bill, give him all his dues. Bill was a hell of a nice guy. He knew his personnel and whatnot, but sometimes Bill just didn't quite grasp the full situation. He got to make a presentation.
Of Elmer E. Kohl of 1916 Osage Drive, Okemos, Michigan. The recording was made on June 7th, 1990 by Jim Walkinshaw of the Oldsmobile History Center.
Did Skinner, the only reason I'm asking about Skinner is we don't know much about him because not a lot of us got close to him, so to speak. In the meetings, you mentioned you attended like staff meetings when you were part of the service organization. How did he operate a staff meeting?
Extremely businesslike. It was Skinner's meeting.
Okay.
It was Skinner's meeting. There was not too much input from his staff heads, except where there was a debatable situation that there was no good answer for it, like car volume or schedules and whatnot. That was debated. But Skinner was the type of individual like presentations. And the only reason I got into the staff meeting is because he had asked the week before for a presentation concerning something to do with field service, whether it be warranty, product failures, or what have you. So then we in service had to develop a presentation, usually by chart, for the next Tuesday staff meeting. And was my exposure to Skinner.
Okay.
And when I first went in there, I was so dumb, ignorant and so young, I didn't know Skinner. So I just boldly went in there, and made my presentation. I guess it came out all right.
Yeah. Did he ask you a lot of questions?
Yeah, first question was, where's your boss?
Oh. Not sure.
I don't know.
Not sure.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was all over. So send it back 2 pages. Tell me about that. You had to explain what it's doing.
Yeah.
But fortunately for me, I guess, the explanation I gave was true and correct and proper. There was no problem there because, but I watched others make their presentations on baptism of fire. I'll tell you.
Did he just ask lots of questions?
Yeah, lots of questions. Say you're not prepared for this meeting. Back next week. Next.
That's pretty.
Yeah.
Pretty sharp.
It was very embarrassing for high people, big people, people.
Okay.
But he was. When Skinner called you, you shook in your boots to go there. You knew that this could be the last of your days, or it could be your future, or you come out of there unscathed. One of the 3 things. Because he never asked you to come there just to talk about the time of the day. It was just something real.
Okay.
Unlike Wolfram, when he would summon you, he would have a few personal things to talk about, first of all. Wolfram was the type of individual, for example, when he hired me to run the inspection manufacturing plant, he said, "We want to talk about this." He said, "Go to my house Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock. I got some things I want to talk to you about."
Interesting.
So Saturday afternoon, I appeared there, and he was in the process of playing some classical music.
Okay.
So I said, so he'd stand there and walk on the floor, listening. "I just want you to know how the general manager," he said, "passes some of the time on a Saturday afternoon." By the selection came to an end, I'm sitting there. What does he want? What does he want? So I get this look. I'll tell you what, I got mine. Just like that. Yeah. I'll tell you what, I got mine. And he started to just, what do you think about that, Cole? Well, yeah, this is my thought, this thing. Yeah, he says, that more or less is about what I have. I think doing something else. He says, well, I just want to talk about a few things. Can't talk about these kind of things, the off damn phone, whatnot. He says, okay, that was it.
Well, I'll be darned.
Yeah, off you go. Yeah.
At his house.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Then one day, we were having some kind of a dealer council meeting. Yeah, dealer council meeting. And the auditorium was full of people. After the council meeting, I had to be every council meeting because I'm service manager. And after the council meeting, all the sales department people, whatnot, had to go from there for dinner with the dealers and what have you. And Wolf was standing talking to Elmer Kohl. Elmer Kohl. Yes. Starting Tuesdays, I want you to be secretary of the staff meeting. He said, I want you to do that every Tuesday and circulate reports. You're now a member of the staff. Like that, he starts talking to the dealers again.
Just out of the blue.
Oh, geez. What am I supposed to do when I get there on Tuesday? So I appeared there with my notebook and pencil.
Yeah.
I was it. So for about 3 years, every Tuesday I had to put out minutes of that doggone
No
meeting.
kidding. I didn't think anybody put minutes out to those things.
For 3 years I did.
Yeah.
What a glorious test. Evenings. Come back. Then you have them typed up.
Yeah.
Then you send them out. Then they start coming back. This isn't right. He didn't say that. He said this. This should have been a then instead of a.
Oh, my Lord.
Then you had to redo that.
Yeah.
Then you had to get it back out for the next
Uh-huh.
meeting. Then first thing you look at, everybody read the minutes? Yes, sir. Any changes? Okay, that was it. The fact I needed to come out of the corporation, they didn't have to have those minutes anymore. So
Oh,
that
yeah.
was that.
Okay.
They said, come over to the meeting anyway.
Oh, really?
So that's, he offered, Skinner would have thought that way. And on was, or he was too aloof.
Uh-huh.
Skinner, you could not get close to Skinner. He was, no, he was beyond that. He was a different kind of a man.
Yeah.
He acted like I thought most generals would act in a war.
Oh, all
That
right.
type of an individual.
Uh-huh.
But see, he and Lucius Clay
Yeah,
quite
I
close
heard
together.
that story. Yeah.
And it's the operative.
Uh-huh.
All I can understand it. One to confer with the other for their problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then when Wolfram came, did you see a significant change in how the railroad was run or not?
Not necessarily, no. In one respect, I shouldn't say, oh, yes, I did. Wolfram all of a sudden came from an engineering oriented type of operation to the glamour of the sales operation.
Oh, yeah.
He immediately became sales manager. He immediately knew what had to be done in the sales department and to scheduling, anything to do with the sale of the product. That became ever consuming for him, putting on shows, theater shows. And whatnot. All of a sudden, he and Evie and his son, that became overpowering for him. But I don't mean to imply he neglected the engineering aspect or what have you. It was always there. But it was the rest of the part was all consuming.
His focus kind of shifted.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Did he ever get out in the shop at all?
No,
The manager?
The only time I would get him out is maybe to a BOP plant,
Okay.
more or less to get out of town, something like that. And we look at some product or whatnot, but Letzo was even worse yet. Letzo would not get out of the plant at all.
Okay.
Not at all. He would get out of some BOP plants when we had some real bad troubles. To give us some help there.
Mhm.
But if it had to do with the plant here in Lansing, he was Downey or Rallis.
Just kind of
Take care
hands
of it.
off.
Take care of it. I've already been that route, so I was stuck.
Yeah.
Yep.
Rallis, was one of
He
the
was a good guy.
good supporter of.
He was a good guy. But yeah, he wouldn't fight with people.
Yeah.
He at least didn't for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Were you there when Johnny Belts went through?
oh, yes. Yeah, yeah.
Was that a?
Johnny was a good general
significant
manager.
change?
Johnny would come out and plant.
Okay.
He came out and plant. Because, see, in those days, we were getting ready to put the Tornado
Yeah.
bed. And I was working quite closely with Bob Stemple. And Belts, of course, was deeply involved in that Tornado. So we got together quite a bit over in that Tornado area. Got to know John Bud. Very good. Of course, being part of the staff meeting, of course, we got to know each other out. Go to these different meetings, what have you, Greenbrier.
Yeah.
What have you.
Did the staff meeting texture change significantly under
It was
Belt?
always the same.
It always, same objective and same.
Yeah, always. Yeah, probably the same thing today. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't either.
Yeah. He had learned nothing new in that respect.
Yeah.
Cook, same way.
Yeah.
Cook was low key.
Okay.
He was low key. And yeah, John Belts and Bob Stemple were quite close in that Tornado thing, to the point where Bob Stemple got some new promotion. I wrote him a letter congratulating reminding me of what we did on the tornado,
Mhm.
what a far cry from what we were involved in there. And you're top of progress. I can't miss this opportunity to write a letter of congratulations to the chairman of the board. I got a nice letter back from him.
Did you?
Yeah,
Oh, that's
signed
nice.
Bob.
Yeah, that's nice. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Was the tornado thing, Elmer, was that a difficult, the bringing of that forward?
The first year was very difficult because nothing worked.
Mhm.
It was very difficult. It so many problems because everything on it was absolutely brand new. And we had no computers in those days and whatnot to tell us what the problems were going to be. We had experienced everything by it happening. Nothing before it happened.
After the fact.
Everything is after the fact.
Oh, yeah.
And God, I'll tell you, every afternoon after the plant shut down, we had half the engineering department over there, purchasing department going over every one of the problems every day. When will this ever come to an end?
Mhm.
Finally, next year, model came out, a lot of that stuff was behind us and things began to flow. Plus our facilities were so obsolete.
We put it in that old plant.
Oh, jeez. Like building it with a barn.
Right, right.
Yeah.
If you were to look back over the time that you were here, Elmer, would you say there was any one major significant happening that perhaps comes to mind that maybe?
No, I often thought of that. What was the barn burner? What was the
Yeah,
real,
what
what thing?
got us where we are, or what?
No, to me, everything was a moving forward sort of situation. Developments, natural developments that were, most of them planned. A lot of them we accidentally got into. But to say that Joe Potatoes or this guy or something else,
Yeah.
well, that was a turnaround. That wasn't, it was too, it was an organization thing we had here.
Okay.
And the organization itself moved back and forth to the point where I'd say it's momentum under good direction moved it. So I guess I would have to qualify that some of the biggest changes I think took place is when the concessions were made by the union for, as a result of contract changes, changed the attitude of people, and they toward us, we toward them.
Mhm.
Once we began to prove and show that the line worker was a human being as we supervisors were, and we get our people begin to recognize the fact they should be treated as such, regardless of how bad you thought things were. And the unions got to the point where they accepted the fact that, hey, maybe we have a stake in this thing too. Maybe we all can be nice to each other. I'd say that evolution before I left started to improve to the point where that helped, particularly as some of the older line supervisors retired. Some of those that led and supervised with a whip.
We had to get that generation
How to
kind
get
of
that
out of the
generation.
plant.
As that was taken, but it didn't happen boom,
No,
like a
yeah.
full light.
Yeah.
It was an evolution.
Okay.
And that evolution that took place is like most things took place in our business. You recall, we start here and we start to improve as we go along, expand as we go along to the point where, my God, look how big this thing is.
Did you see the attitude of folks change then over that continuum of time? Did we go from what I call an adversarial relationship then to the more?
Not at first.
Okay.
The newly elected promoted supervisors somehow got the impression that they had to follow the footsteps of the guy they were replacing. And it took a while for them to begin to see the light that, hey, I should be myself. I should begin to do this thing the way the future is demanding of me to do, not like it used to be done. And it took a while until some of these guys, I'm thinking of Doug Tracy, for example, when he was a GMI student coming into the picture and doing his training over in final car assembly under his supervisors, he was a real good student of the way they used to do it and make it worse. And he and I got into some of the damnedest things to the point where it was going to be either he get the hell out or me. And finally, some of his supervisors began to get the picture too. Hey, look, you just don't fight the director the way you are. You are going down the wrong path here, young man.
Yeah.
And well, I'm just trying to do what you guys have been telling me all these years and whatnot. Nobody got to him and said, we ain't gonna do that anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why we need this facility right here.
Yeah, could very well be.
Yep.
Yeah, it's at least a piece
Because people, workers, I don't care whether you're carpenters or plumbers or whatnot, unless you're shown what to do, you're taught what to do, you will not be able to do it the way it's supposed to be done. I don't care whether you're a baker or what you are. At home, if you can't make a bed, somebody show you how to make it, it won't be made right. It'll be shown. That's why you've got to train people. That's what Japan did with their automotive workers. They saw the light. They knew they had to excel because they were at the bottom of the ladder. They trained people to excel, and they did. And we were excusing ourselves all through the years. This is going to go away, going to go away. It didn't go away. Now we're training people.
Yeah.
Saturn is an example, and let's see how that works out.
Yeah. Did the Lansing area, was it different than, you traveled to a lot of the other plants and places, but did the Lansing area have a different feeling than you would have seen
By all
elsewhere?
means, by all means. Oh, yes. As bad as we knew we were, that's how much better we were than anybody else. You don't know what lack of interest was until you got into some other plants and try to sell a program for the betterment of the product. Man, you were just, ho, 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 ho.
It's time to go home.
Yeah, let's go home. Yeah. And nothing ever happened. Nothing ever come of it.
So we were kind of a step ahead of
Yeah.
everybody, so to speak.
And where was our mistake? Our mistake is we should have went to the top, and it should have came down.
Pushed
But the
it down.
top was never had time for us in quality control to get the story and begin to do something on it, because they didn't realize how poor it was.
Yeah.
They didn't realize what the problem was out there.
Did we insulate the people, or how did?
Our Lansing people, though, for some reason or another, I guess one of the reasons is that it was a sort of an ethnic thing around here with us. So the grandfather was here, the father was here, the son was here.
Yeah.
And if the grandfather was good, the son was good, and the grandkid is good.
Okay.
And the esprit de corps we had, the interest we had in this sort of an operation, made it easy for us to go and show them the error in their ways. And if they had a boss that was cooperative, boy, you get your program right now. But if you had some of the bosses that you knew and I knew at these operating meetings, nothing would happen because of bullshit. And those guys, they're not doing nothing. So there you were. Now where do you go? Now where do you go? So, yeah, that's, yes, all the plants were, particularly other car divisions. Yeah, Flint. Oh,
So we
terrible.
were quite fortunate.
And they're closed too.
Yeah, true.
That's right. You can't continue doing wrong forever, get away with it. Eventually, like Donald Trump, eventually he's gonna come to
they
pass.
gotta
I
catch
gotta
up.
go home.
Elmer,
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Take care. Thanks for inviting me. I'm sorry I put you off this
That's all
long,
right.
Jim,
No
but
problem.
I